All right, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jennifer Britton. It is just 4 o'clock Eastern, and we are getting going with day three of launch week. Hey, Missy, I'm glad that you could join us. We're just getting started, and this is day three of launch week for Reconnecting Workspaces. Really excited to bring this forward each and every day. I seem to be having different people come and join me every day, but I'm the author of Reconnecting Workspaces, which is really geared to support you, yourself as an individual, yourself as a team, or an organization in thriving in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world. So, I'm Jennifer Britton. You may have met me through some of my other books, including Effective Virtual Conversations, and of course, from One to Many Best Practices for Team and Group Coaching. If you haven't yet downloaded a copy of the outline of the book, head on over to bit.ly.com/RW book flyer. It gives you a little bit more information about this book, which I'm going to dive into today through the team lens. And when I say the team lens, really looking at some of the team tools, because in a remote space, in the hybrid space, we have so many different people coming together. And you may know that I am the podcast co host of a podcast known as Remote Pathways. And at the Remote Pathways, for the last 2 years, we've been looking at the people, places, and processes to remote work. Obviously, as the world continues to change, we're also now jumping on the hybrid highway to look at what people need, as there may be some workplaces going back to in person. Some places aren't, though. And this is a really interesting something. Around the world, we're all having a very different experience. So today, I thought it would be really interesting for us to look at some of the team tools, because the book is organized in several ways. So there's actually 21 different chapters in Reconnecting Workspaces. It's geared for leaders and team members. And in each chapter there, it starts with a principle and a myth, and then it's followed by a team tool. And today I wanted to dive into the team tool, which are really, 20 different areas to really think about how you can facilitate a conversation for teams. Now, each chapter also has a couple of accompanying components that I think you'll find interesting, including the 6 questions. And the 6 questions are really there to spark people in conversation if they are part of a team or a group, or they can be used as questions for reflection if you're reading it as a solopreneur, as an individual contributor, etc. We'll be diving into some of those 6 questions and the brain tips, as well as the reconnecting tips, because each chapter wraps up with a reconnecting tip, getting you to think about, what does it mean to reconnect? Are you reconnecting face to face? Are you reconnecting, on a business level? Are you reconnecting in other ways? So with that, we're going to dive today into a little bit into the chapters. So as I said, there's also 21 chapters in this book, and I haven't talked about this yet. I think it's going to be interesting to folks to just get a more of an inside view of, like, what is this book really all about? So I want to take you through the first 2/3 of the book, and I'll just go very high level, because each one of these really creates the umbrella for the brain tips, the reconnecting tips, and the team tools for each one. And we start our journey in this book really looking at the context, looking at, what does it mean to work in a workspace right now? Again, the world has been rocked by VUCA, by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the last, well, really since March or early part of 2020. But even before then, VUCA was at our doorstep. As I shared earlier this week, I started writing this manuscript on November 1st, 2017. And the first chapter I started writing is pretty much what you see. I wouldn't say it's exactly what you read now, but a lot of the main themes, including this overarching focus on VUCA and how do we help teams and individuals thrive in a VUCA environment, was there back in 2017. So the context has changed, but a lot of these principles have remained the same. So chapter 1 is all about looking at the workspaces, what the context is, but then we also dive into the digital world. What does it mean to really live and lead in this digital space? Whether we are, back in the office, but still working in a digital ecosystem, whether we're hybrid because we're coming back in part-time and hopefully being able to see people, even if it's just outside, or for some of us still remaining remote by choice. Chapter 3 is all about team effectiveness. And one of the things that we've really seen a lot of organizations embrace is a shift in the way organizations are structured. Now, this is not every organization, but I think in the remote space, we've all realized that, team members themselves need more skills, more support, often more authority and responsibility to get their work done. So, chapter 3 is about team effectiveness. And chapter 4 is also geared to teams. It's all about the tapestry of teams. How do we harness the best? And as I say, tapestry, we're all really different. So, how do we lean into our strengths and our styles? Chapter 5 is actually the topic that we looked at in day 2 yesterday in the call. I had others on a call. We looked at the triad of trust, safety, and connection, as well as the triad, as I call it, the TRI of trust, respect, and influence. That's a secondary triangle that I reference in this book. And chapter 6, simply about communication and conversations. At the end of the day, we want to have a dialogue. And part of that dialogue is about making sure that everyone's on the same page, whether we're back in the office, whether we're offsite, whether I'm on one side of the border and you're on another. How do we make this work scalable so that we have systems, processes, and tools? So if you have not yet picked up a book, definitely head on over to Amazon. It's been really fun for me as an author. It just got released earlier this week, and I've been getting texts and emails of people with photos of the book. So, snap a shot, right? Definitely show it. And if you are going to share that yourself on your social media, use the hashtag Reconnecting Workspaces or Let's Talk Hybrid, which I think is really where we're going to be doing a lot of the talking this fall. Already organizations are reaching out saying, can you come and talk? And, one of the things that I've been sharing is I'm also building up I don't want to call them an army because they're definitely not an army, but like a whole cohort of Reconnecting Workspaces coaches, because I can't do this work alone. And so starting next week on the 21st of June, I'll be leading a 24-hour training program for coaches who want to take this work out in the world and really have a specialization in being equipped to spark the conversations that need to happen in this hybrid and also evolving remote world. So if you're interested in that, check out reconnectingworkspaces.com. And there's still a couple of spots. Some of you have inquired, will you be doing this again? And yes, I'll be doing it again because some can't make the June date. There will be a late August, September date as well. And so, we need hundreds of coaches ready to do this work. That's for sure. So I know I've got Melissa on the line. Do you want to unmute, Melissa, and say a little something as we get into today's call, or would you rather just be offline? It's your call.
Mute. Well, first of all, your hair looks great.
Yes, I have our house, our hairdressing salons have been closed for about 3 months now. They're still closed, so thank you.
No, I know Canada's going through something else with this pandemic. Yes. I'm glad you alluded to. I was actually looking at your class schedule, and I was going to inquire about. I hope I didn't delete that. No, you know what? I filed it, but I wanted to know when you're going to be offering your Teams coaching.
Yeah.
You said you're going to do it quarterly, and I heard you just say August, September, and so I'm interested in that.
All right. Well, there's two. There's the whole hog that's really focusing on reconnecting workspaces. There's also now the team coaching essentials for hybrid teams. So are you interested in the longer one or the shorter one, Missy?
The shorter one, actually.
Yep.
At first.
Yeah. So for those that are maybe listening to this, because today's topic is team tools, yes, you can sort of go into the full 24-hour training, but I have also introduced this spring team coaching essentials, which I've run a few times in the past, but it's really become I need it now. And so it is a 5-week, 8.75 hour program. It's being reviewed also like the longer Reconnecting Workspaces for continuing coach education. I think there might be a July, August date set, and definitely it'll be back in September. I'm going to be doing more of the shorter 5-week program. Originally, the intention was to do it quarterly, and I will be doing it more frequently. Now, actually, Missy, we just started this week. If you had need to jump in and wanted to jump in with the group that just started, that's a Monday group right now, and it's running from this week, June the 14th, what is it? June the 14th it started, running to end of July. So let me know. Let me know.
No, well, my work pays for mine, and so we go by fiscal, and so I already, I already spent the money this year, so I gotta wait till October 1.
Okay, okay. So October 1 or September 1? You're later in the year?
We go through the end of September. So if I paid your September, if I paid, because I have to pay it up front and then they reimburse me. So if I paid for the September one, they would reimburse me, even if it runs into another fiscal year. I don't think it has to be a tight closeout.
All right. Well, good. Well, let's connect offline on that. But anyone who's interested, check out Teams Coaching. It's called Team Coaching Essentials, and it's got a specific focus on remote and hybrid. Week 2 of the 6 weeks is really all geared towards the remote and hybrid space. And that's what I want to zoom into on the rest of our call. We've got about 20 minutes, and I think it's really interesting and important for us to look at what is helping teams thrive right now. And what is interesting, and people have heard me say this before, is like, we're going back to the basics, right? On so many things, it's like, let's go back to the foundational elements. And it's going back to like the trust, safety, and connection. Again, those are the 3 topics we looked at yesterday in the day 2 launch call. But it's also about having strong process and having understanding of each person's sort of reality and context and what they need. And this is where like styles comes in. This is where other elements like helping people know what is beyond the screen or what's been happening and what is in that bucket of work that we have no longer really been able to see on multiple levels. Now, some organizations pivoted very quickly last year in terms of looking at their workflow and work process, so people can literally see what others are working on in a digital sense. But there's more than just the digital to getting things done. And so for teams right now, it's about finding, I think, that rhythm of having great conversations while having the focus on results. And throughout Reconnecting Workspaces, it really is about that focus on what are we doing for results and what are we doing for relationships. We need both. We need both results and relationships to really enact high performance. And that, I'm just going to go back to some of like the midpoint of the book. We go into teamwork practices and leadership practices. And what's interesting is, how important it is now to equip team members with great practices, more skills in like chapter 15, I go into coaching and mentoring. Like, how are we really building those peer coaching skills so that people can have better conversations? How are we equipping all people with conflict resolution and conflict management skills, as well as the ability to give feedback? So working backwards on this screen, I've just got chapters 8 through 15. I'm going to work backwards. It should be 8 through 14. Chapter 14 is conflict management. Chapter 13 is performance management and feedback. And again, leading in a hybrid and a remote space, we all need to be better at identifying, bottlenecks and, opportunity points, the things that are going to threaten projects, as well as what resourcing needs are like what resourcing is needed from all levels. And a large part of this goes back to like the whole onboarding process. So I was sharing this a few days ago that actually, hopefully by September, I think it will probably come out by September, the Reconnecting Workspaces is actually the first of about 12 books that will come out in the next few years. Not all in this year by any means, but the next book is going to be a 90-day guide. And it really is going to be more of a workbook to support people who are being onboarded to a role or are also in their own role and are really looking at almost sprinting in that sort of 90-day window. And that reflects chapter 11's message of learning in the talent cycle, right? Even if we have been in the same role for 5 years, 10 years, I think what most people are finding is that every day is becoming a very different day. And while that may settle down in several months, ongoing learning is a big part of high performance in this space, as is chapter 10's focus on relationship management. Many of you might have attended one of the calls I did in 2020 at the start of the pandemic of the no person is an island. And if you can look at the icon for that chapter, it really is, the island chain. Like we are not alone in this remote and hybrid space. We are very deeply connected as long as we take time to make those connections. And that brings us full circle to the team tips and the team tools. So I'm really pleased with the actual book because, it's a lengthy book. It's 440 pages. Like my other writing, it's a book that you want to pick up as you need it. So maybe you're experiencing some conflict. You might start off actually in chapter 14, or maybe you're all about how do I reconnect with people on a relational level. You might then dive into chapter 10 to start. You can start anywhere. They're really, like um, self-structured sessions because of these different elements that I shared, the team tips, the brain tips, etc. So for today, I wanted to take just a very high overview of 20 of the team tools because chapter 21 doesn't introduce any new content. It actually is an integration chapter because that is another sort of reflection of what we're not getting in this space, which is time to integrate things. So team tools, a variety. Every chapter has something different. And you might be looking at this going, I think there's some typos like Smarty, what's Smarty? And anyone who's read my writing knows my affinity in goal setting. Goal setting has been so critical in this work, more from sort of an OKR and objectives and key results, or a MBO, management by objectives framework. We've had to get a lot more specific on outcomes. And this is where, going back to the basics around SMART or SMARTY goal setting becomes key. We've got to be specific. What outcomes are we looking for? What does it look like? What are those measures of success? Is it realistic and relevant? Is it attainable? And if it is going to be attainable, what resourcing do we need? Is it relevant to the work that we're doing? Is it time bound? And of course, is it exciting? And throughout Reconnecting Workspaces, there's a lot more on motivation, right? Because motivation is a key part to helping people thrive in this space. So you'll see a couple of reconnecting tips around motivation, some other components like the SMARTY goal setting to really get everyone, not just leaders, but team members as well, thinking about how can I do my best work when I show up for work, whether that's a 6 hour or 8 hours of consecutive work, or 4 hours at the start of the day, and then another 2 hours, and then another 2 hours. We really want to lean into that whole focus on excitement and what excites me, and how can I really focus deeply. On this list as well, you'll see things that you've probably met before. I've touched on, my one of my favorite tools, the Johari window. There's resources for teams around the key topic of trust, or maybe working around styles. There's one, you'll see Revit there in the broad purple. Revit is a framework that I share in terms of feedback. So there's a peer feedback process that gets outlined. And then, of course, some of my favorites are things like visual cards and using visual anchors. So I think many of you will find this a great resource. I know, Missy, you do work with teams. And so what are you noticing that teams need right now? What are you seeing in your journeys?
I have to unmute myself, sorry. What I've been noticing is like you said, after this pandemic, we have definitely are moving into rethinking our work environment. So it's going hybrid.
Yeah.
Even where I work, the HR lady told me that they are only going to be allowed to use their office twice a week. Mm-hmm. And other people are going to be using their office space. So they have to work from home 3 days a week.
Yeah. It's totally revolutionizing, the way we work in so many ways. And that has implications for individuals. And I'm not overstepping that because that's also a big focus of this book, but like teams, right? So how do we manage? How do I manage my workflow if I'm only in my office 2 days a week?
Well, when you actually even touching upon that, like we do I'm working from home. Some people go in 3 days a week, and we have to do our staff meeting on Teams, the Outlook Teams.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, thank you, Microsoft, like a Zoom. And then we have to do our morning huddle. We can either do Teams or we can call in. So that is, to me, like it's almost like becoming the new modality.
Yeah,
absolutely. Instead of being in person.
Yeah. And so what do you know, if, again, we don't need you to share in great detail, but like what has been making those meetings work well?
Well, actually, I will say this, we do an AES where I work, which is we give candid feedback. And then as a team, we have to get together and talk about areas we're going to work on. So what we have done is we have a staff member share about their personal life. And then we have a staff member share about their unique position in the hospital and how they contribute to that. So like, for instance, I briefed last month on ministering to oncology patients.
Ooh, great. Yeah. And so key, right? So key in your line of work. So I love that. And again, you're talking to relationships and results, right? In that frame.
Right,
How are we
right.
doing both? How are we getting to know each other? How are we getting to contribute our strengths and our expertise while, while building those relational factors across the team. So are you able at all at any time to come together as a team yet? Will that happen this fall, do you think?
I work for the federal government, and so, our stateside in America, most states are opened up and they've released the mask mandate.
Mhm.
The federal government has. So, because I work in a federal complex, we still have the mask mandate, but the issue is because it's healthcare, they have not called us. Like we have a different movement in returning back to the building.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. Absolutely. Well, team tools, I think people like you, everyone's going to find it useful. There'll be something that is applicable in all different ways. And something you spoke to, I heard you say, was like leading from strengths, right? And then even for the whole team to get better at asking questions, how are we really equipping everyone across the team with those coaching skills that are such a key piece? How are we making it visual, right? And how are we visually mapping our processes? How are we mapping our relationships so that when we're getting pulled into special projects, we at least have a conceptual visual map of how people are coming together. So
Yeah, the other thing, my boss has asked me to take care of the addicts, those who are suffering with alcohol or drugs. And so I use a group coaching technique with them, and that's over, again, like a video.
yeah, love it, love it. And I know you've been doing group coaching for a long time now. What is it, a decade?
Yeah, so 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 11
Yeah.
years. 11 years. That's fantastic, right? And again, I imagine just huge impact in terms of that accountability and any ongoing conversation at the deeper level.
Well, it's interesting because the social workers, it's their program, so they sit in on it.
Hmm.
And they're listening and they're realizing, okay, we need to work on, like the other week, the other month, it was the patients were talking about their self-talk.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the social workers like, oh my goodness, we need to work on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, and I'm like, let the patients tell you what they need.
Hmm.
Like I use the coaching model because I don't want to dictate to them. I want them to reveal where's their area of weakness and how can we strengthen that.
Yes.
And so, the awareness that comes out by using that model is just incredible.
Yeah. And that's what we need, right? We need everyone on board to sort of continue to thrive and run. And so I think we've really addressed this question of like, what do teams need to thrive right now? Right? It's like we need to be listened to, we need to have space to talk. We need to design around what's important in the moment, which will change. It'll keep changing location to location for quite some more time.
Yes, definitely.
Love it. Well, if you would like, I was saying this yesterday, bookmarks are coming. They're in the post. I think they should be delivered maybe today or tomorrow. Happy to throw some bookmarks in the post for you, and you can always email me and I'll throw those in the mail. But I hope people will be enjoying the book as you go forward. And again, lots of great chapters there. Pick up a copy on Amazon. It seems to be available almost around the world now, not only in the Kindle but in like print. I've had emails this week from people in Europe. I'm going to check tomorrow with India because I have some colleagues that I'll be meeting with out of India. Certainly, it's Canada, the U.S., South America. So, yeah, spread the word and whatever people need in terms of moving their conversations forward. I hope that you'll find this useful. And I'm back tomorrow. I'm going to be doing one last sort of the first week, which will be bringing all voices into the room. So that'll be back here at 4 p.m. for anyone who's interested. And then I'll move to a bi-weekly call cycle for the summer months. Come the fall, I'll be looking forward to doing a lot of speaking. Already I'm doing a lot of speaking tomorrow. I'm meeting with 2 groups, well, 3 groups if you count my first group of the morning. And one group is going to be all about bringing voices into the room. The other groups are going to be more about coaching, really building their coaching capability, which I think in terms of reconnecting workspaces, that's at the heart of this. So Missy, I'm glad that you joined me today. Anything you wanted to inquire about before we go to wrap up?
Well, as my former mentor, I wanted to tell you I attained the PCC status.
Ooh, congratulations. That is so great.
It was a lot of work. But your skill set training really helped. So I wanted to let you know, because that's been a big, that made a difference. So thank you.
Nice. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Well, we all got to keep growing. Hopefully you saw the new PCC markers. Well, the PCC markers for team coaching aren't out yet, but we've rolled in this year the team coaching competencies. So if you join me at Team Coaching Essentials, we'll be looking at those this fall. So I hope to see you this fall.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Well, I'm going to drop off here. It is 4:30. It is the end of my workday. I'm going to the pool now. Now that the pools have reopened outside, outdoors, I'm going to go and enjoy some sunshine. Everyone around the world, definitely catch on up. If you're on Instagram, just starting a whole Instagram feed, Reconnecting Workspaces. There is, of course, the whole new reconnectingworkspaces.com website. And I'm still blogging daily over at Teams 365, which is at our main site, potentialsrealized.com. So lots on the go, and I look forward to connecting with many of you, some of you next week in the coach training, but also like you, Missy, in Team Coaching Essentials. Group Coaching Essentials is continuing on as well. So with that, be well, Missy, until we see each other again.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Thanks for dropping in today. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.